Welcome into Basketball by Association, a very sneaky version here on this May the whatever day it is. You can figure that on your own. My name is Arky. Shea. That is Joel C. Cordes. Joel, I am so tired of these Miami Heat. I am exhausted. It is a dogfight for me to watch these games. What is going on with you? How are you, friend?
I'm good, and we're going to talk about the Heat and the Knicks. Knicks still alive. Talk about all the playoff series. It's exciting stuff, but we do got to name an episode. You might not be able to name the date, Arky Shea, but can you name the player we're going to christen this after? There are 4 players in NBA history who have logged 146 career playoff games. Actually, 145. Sorry, we're on episode 145. We've done a Hakeem Olajuwon episode a long time ago, so we're not going to get him. Dirk Nowitzki, I feel like we've gotten as well at some point. We have not had a Kyle Korver episode, but we also haven't had an Ashton Kutcher episode, so to keep it, fair, we're just not going to do either. So we've got choice number 4 here on the list, who is very underrated. I feel like a lot of people, unless you were around at this time, have kind of forgotten just how good he was. So let's see if you can name him. He's a Hall of Famer, a 10-time All-Star, a 1995 NBA champ, 5-time All-NBA player, and he's on the 75th anniversary team. But the big clue should be 95 NBA champ with the 10-time All-Stars. So it can't be Hakeem.
Okay, Joel, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
That 1995, so that's the 94 season, right?
Mm-hmm. 94, 95 NBA champs.
94, 95, interesting. Okay, so...
Never underestimate the heart of a champion.
This must be a clue.
That is a clue.
That's a clue. Okay, 94, 95. So 94, 95. That's Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not Hakeem.
It's not Hakeem. But what other 10-time All-Star was on that team getting a ring? In fact, he had been to 2 other NBA finals, but unsuccessfully with his previous team, of which he logged most of his career, which was 12 seasons in the Pacific Northwest before coming to the Houston Rockets, where he did 4 seasons and did get a ring. He was a 2-time All-Star while with the Houston Rockets.
Is that oh man, I'm gonna feel dumb on this one, aren't I?
Portland Trailblazers was his previous team.
Oh, okay. No, he wasn't on that team. Was he on that team? No. Maybe.
Just name the name.
Sam Cassell?
No. Because 10 plus seasons, 12 seasons with the Portland Trailblazers before coming to the Houston Rockets.
Before.
Cassell was a rookie. The first championship season, and then got his second on the sophomore season.
I don't.
All right, well,
the only name I got on top of my head is Clyde Drexler. No,
that's it, baby. That's it. It's the Clyde Drexler episode. Yeah.
Clyde Drexler. Okay. 94, 90. Oh, I'm going to have to back this math out. Okay, 94, 95. He had already been to 2 finals.
Yeah. The Blazers lost against the Bad Boys 1 Pistons.
Yeah.
And they lost against the Chicago Bulls.
I forgot about the Bad Boy Pistons.
The first three-peat of the Jordan era.
Okay, I forgot about the Bad Boy Pistons final. Okay. Yeah, my bad. Okay, cool. All right. Well, this is not the Sam Cassell episode. This is now lovingly becoming...
We're keeping it here on planet Earth, so it's not the Sam Cassell episode.
The Clyde Drexler episode. Okay. All right, I'm all right with that. Oh, man. Sam Cassell was only a rookie in 94, 95?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Right?
So he often talks about the unrealistic expectations he had that his first 2 seasons in the league resulted in championships. and he just thought it was going to be that way forever. Sam had an amazing career as a journeyman starting point guard after that and played on some really good teams that got close, but I don't believe he ever got a ring again. I think when he got to those Boston Celtics on the tail end of his career, they did not win the season that he was with them on his final year.
And
didn't make it with Minnesota, though they were awfully close in 04. And the rest of his teams were never close enough. They were semifinal
I may be off,
losers.
but correct me if I'm wrong. Cassell, I don't think he played for Portland, so I must have some kind of what is that called? The Mandela effect, where like there's something I swore was true that's not true, but maybe
Freudian slip, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because he was drafted by Houston. Mm-hmm. I guess that math works out. All right, all right. Well, congratulations, Sam Cassell. You are on the back burner for another episode, perhaps. But we are giving this one straight to the hands of the one, the only Clyde the Glide Drexler. So, hey, let me say this, Mr. Joel C. Cordes. I'm done with the Heat. I'm just done with them. I'm tired of the Heat. I'm disgusted by how much of a drag all of these games are. I don't mean the uninteresting to watch way. It's just
it's fantastic basketball.
It's just so every possession, and it should be at this point. It's so hard to watch the Knicks play, right? And listen, and they're not bad, right? They're 3-2 down, 3-2. So they got further than Milwaukee did, right, against Miami.
This is true.
So, but I gotta say, man, watching Jimmy Butler still be dumb like this is really frustrating to me. Like at some point, like someone just has to go back after the ankles, right? So like Game 4 was really frustrating because Julius Randle was not on his game early, and the Knicks were not on their game early, and that sucked to have to sort of sit through. But Game 5 back at home, the Knicks played really hard. The Knicks played really well, but everything's a slog. Like Miami makes everything so difficult.
They do not go away. They just do not go away. And
they don't go away in the series. They don't go away in a game. They just, every time you think you got a little bit of breathing room, next thing you know, you're a 3 away from being a 1-point game with 30 seconds to go in the game. You're like, oh, come on. You played better today. Win this one. You got to have this one. But the Knicks do make it 3-2 in favor of Miami after winning in New York. Thoughts on this series so far? Because Jimmy Butler seems to be inhuman.
Butler's been amazing, and we talked a lot about him last week. I want to focus on the other guys that have really stepped up into bigger than expected roles. And there's a couple of them that really stand out. When Tyler Hero went down, the Miami Heat did not have the secondary driver that they normally do. Yeah, they can get some of that out of Kyle Lowry, and you can get some of that out of Bam Adebayo, but typically that's kind of on like a but instead, all of a sudden, Max Strus has kind of morphed from a standstill three-point shooter who this year the announcers were talking about, oh, yeah, it's great. Max Strus has kind of added to his game that he can put it on the deck every once in a while. He'll surprise you every once in a while, with a flyby on a pump fake. But Strus is going to the basket hard, and he's doing it almost as many possessions as he spots up at this point. He's really changed his game in a way that I don't think anybody thought he was capable of. And then stepping into the standstill three-point shooting role that Strus was formerly occupying is a guy that got a big contract a few years ago, looked like kind of the next big thing as an NBA three-point shooter. And then teams figured out how to guard him. They figured out how to go against him, how to expose him defensively. He got played off the floor a lot. I think he lost his confidence over the last year and a half, and he drifted out of the Miami Heat rotation. And yet all of a sudden, here's Duncan Robinson back in the rotation, knocking down threes. And the great thing is he's not hesitating, and the three-point shot looks confident. He had a quick trigger even when he was in his slump, but you never got the sense out of the body language that he really expected it to go in. And it's just the confidence that the Heat are playing with right now that Robinson steps into that. A guy like Caleb Martin, who has had to step into almost what Jimmy Butler's role was previously in a lot of ways, which is kind of a two-way player, a cutter, a slasher, because Butler's having to do everything on the floor. Caleb Martin steps up, has been very, very reliable throughout this series, both as a shooter and a driver. And yet then somebody like Hunter Highsmith, who only played 3 minutes in game 5, but he's been stepping into the Caleb Martin role, which is the low-minute kind of wingman defensive sub. And I talked about this last week, what a testament it is that really to Eric Spoelstra and the entire coaching staff, but also to the players on the buy-in, that they have been ready when called upon. They understand their job. They're good to go. If they make mistakes, they're brushing it off. They're playing with extreme confidence. Kevin Love, though greatly diminished as a player from what he used to be, still is a guy who comes in and does not make mistakes. He just does his job. It's in his spots. He was only 2 of 10 in game 5, but he's had some bigger games in the series. But he looks like an NFL quarterback out there because they've dusted off the Kevin Love outlet pass, which is something that we really have not seen much of in the last couple of years. And yet the Heat, like crazy, are leaking out on the Knicks over and over and over. And Kevin Love goes downtown with these beautiful passes that are right on the money to a cutter for an easy basket. You can't say enough about Bam Adebayo and guys like Gabe Vincent too, Kyle Lowry, but they're expected to do what they're doing, and they're doing it really well. It's the others that have also stepped up and followed a guy like Jimmy Butler's lead.
Yeah, so enough of the Heat. The Knicks are coming back. They got 2 more games to do it, and they find themselves in the NBA Finals against probably Philly at this point.
Let me ask you, as a Knicks fan, what do the Knicks need to do? I mean, you watched them really outclass the Cleveland Cavaliers in a way that surprised all of us. What does New York need to do to get past this Miami Heat team besides, drive the stake through their heart because they're clearly undead witches of some sort or another? But like, what are the adjustments or who's got to play better?
It starts by physically murdering members of the team, or at least taking out Jimmy Butler. That would be a huge one. But I think where it starts is sort of what you saw a little bit last night, Wednesday night, as we're recording this, as we usually do on Thursdays, which is, if you take a look at the difference in game 4 and in game 5, Julius Randle is a huge engine for this team. Julius Randle is still a little banged up. Okay, so Julius Randle still isn't complete Julius Randle, what we expect. But we can't have Julius Randle from game 4 on. I say we as a team, but we as the series, to be able to see it to go 7 and to be able to win that. You can't have that Julius Randle who seemed to just not be all there focused, who seemed to be made tons of mistakes early, especially early in that game, was lazy with passes, was just for some reason, was just not there. And, I don't know if you saw the post-game comments from Julius Randle, but I think he was asked, like, what do the Knicks need to do or something like that? And he said, well, maybe the Heat just wanted more. I'm like, no, no, that's literally the worst thing you could be saying right now. The very worst thing you could see right now. I'm sure Tom Thibodeau would rip his head off if he knew that there was another option on the bench right now they could just sort of throw in. But Julius Randle is sort of where it all starts, because whether Jalen Brunson usually is the better of the 2 guys on the floor right now, because I think Brunson's healthier and stuff. It makes a whole lot more sense that he is better. He drives the offense, but Julius Randle is a force underneath, when offensively and defensively, when he's all there and close enough to healthy. And I think he's close enough to healthy. We saw it last night where he can be super effective and it just, again, the poor man's MVP from a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. If he's all there, he's in and he's ready, and he doesn't get in his feels early, because I think that's a little of what happened on Tuesday night, is that he just got a little, or maybe it was Monday. No, it was Saturday, right? Saturday was game 4.
I honestly don't remember at this point. Yeah. Earlier in the week.
Yeah. In the previous game. So I think Julius can be a little deterred by that. And he's a little, that's why Miami is such a tough real matchup for New York. Mentally, way tougher. way tougher than the Knicks overall. Way tougher. Even though Tom Thibodeau is a heavy-duty coach, a heavy-handed coach, and there's some tough guys on that team for the Knicks. Miami, it's just like there's a gene that they're like maybe when they had their COVID shots, like specifically for the Heat, there was a specific marker that was put into the DNA of the Miami franchise because they're dogs. They're all dogs in that team, Joel. And I think the Knicks do struggle with that. So provided everyone's sort of kind of healthy and Quentin Grimes is okay, and that was an awesome play where like it looked like he was breaking his leg and he gets up and ends up getting it steal, and you're like, well, none of that math works out, but
I go ahead.
I was going to wrap up with this. I think this is still a very even series. Like we said it going in. I don't. The Knicks shouldn't be down 3-2. Well, I guess I could kind of see them being down 3-2, but they shouldn't have been looking at death's door after Game 4. It should have been 2-2 after 4, then maybe 3-2. I could sort of see that. But if the Knicks are all in, again, this is a very even series. You get a mentally there, physically ready Julius Randle, which is what he got the most part of the series. Just Game 4 was a terrible game. And they got to know it's going to be all 4 quarters. It's all 4 quarters for this team. If they got past and went through and got Boston or Philadelphia, it's a little less like that. But the toughest team left in basketball is the one the Knicks are playing. And they just grind. They grind, and it's very similar to what New York does. They grind. They're just a little better offensively than they were the last couple of seasons with some of the additions they made on the roster, how Emmanuel Quickly has played and Arky. You look at, obviously, Jalen Brunson coming in being a huge deal for them. But I don't think there's a whole lot that needs to be specifically adjusted for outside of, taking out the Achilles of Jimmy Butler. Be all right with me. But
my biggest concern for the Knicks is that Tom Thibodeau, under pressure here of getting out coached through the first 4 games, maybe the first 5 games, depending on how you look at it, under pressure is reverting back to bad Tom Thibodeau, where Quentin Grimes plays 48 minutes. Jalen Brunson plays 48 minutes. He had 12 minutes from Obi Toppin off the bench. Isaiah Hartenstein did 22, but that's because he was splitting time with Mitchell Robinson.
They kind of had to have it, like for this one. Like they in this particular game, like if I see it again in Game 6, them a little worried where like they just sort of shrink the roster and they grind everybody because Tom only goes back to what Tom knows, which is stamp collecting and and putting together rosters.
No Emmanuel Quickly and 9 minutes from Josh Hart. That scares me because those are 2 quality guys that can give you something that you need in this series. And I understand Quickly has been really disappointing during the playoffs here.
Yes.
And Hart, who's supposed to be a top tier defender and really has struggled against Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
But
everyone kind of has, but yeah.
Yeah, top tier defenders from the Bucks were struggling against Jimmy Butler too. I don't think that's a reason to bring Hart off the floor.
I'll concede that point. Like if you get a little wishy-washy on Hart because he struggles against Butler, no one's shutting down Jimmy Butler right now, right? Completely. But you've got to be able to. I can see what you're saying.
I'm afraid of Tibbs, and I understand it was a must-win game, and they're all must-win games the rest of the way of the series. So I get that. But you run that risk of shooting all of your guns at once and then having dead legs in a Game 6 where you cannot make a shot. And the Heat have balanced their rotation better. And like you've said, they're playing harder or have been playing harder. I think the Knicks did a much better job in Game 5 of watching for that deep pass, taking away that outlet a little bit more, letting Grimes leak back. And it's got to be Grimes or Barrett almost every time. One of those guys has got to be getting back and cutting off Bam Adebayo from streaking down the court and getting the touchdown pass, or Strus, because he's done it a bunch of times too, getting the touchdown pass from Love. Jimmy Butler's been on the receiving end, but Butler's thrown some really good down court passes as well. It's clear that the Heat see that as a point of emphasis. It's not necessarily an up and down game, but it is a grinded out game. And I do think like going to a 7-man rotation Tibbs style, yeah, maybe that works in a game. I don't like that idea against the Heat, especially when Josh Hart is one of the guys that is ceding minutes. And again, I'd love to get a look at Quickly again one of these games here and see if he can all of a sudden get hot Lonnie Walker style.
I would love. Did not expect Lonnie Walker's name to come up, but although
There's our segue.
yeah. Well, before we get to that segue, briefly on that, I could see the point as far as reducing the roster at this point. But again,
Mhm.
the must win. Go with the guys that you've seen throughout the playoffs so far that you trust. You want to be able to leave that leash, but the Knicks never had a big lead. The Knicks started off the game down to 10. Like they had like 5 points in the first quarter. Right?
I'm not saying play Derrick Rose. I'm not saying dust off Evan Fournier. I'm just saying dance with who got you here. Dance with who you came with. And Josh Hart is one of those guys.
He scored like 5 points in the first quarter. It was a disaster. Like I was ready to just throw things at my son. And he's 2.5. He might have gotten out of the way. I don't know. But I was ready because it did not make sense. Like anyway.
Don't do that. That's the quickest way to turn him into a Heat fan if you do that.
But they had to grind their way back. And they did it pretty quickly to get it, to be leading at the half. But, they have to grind with this team. And that grind sometimes means that the inconsistent Emmanuel quickly doesn't get the kind of minutes that he probably has been getting throughout the postseason so far. Same thing with Josh Hart. Although that could be more of a mental hurdle for Thibodeau, saying like, can anybody guard him? And the answer is no. Right now, no one can sort of guard him. Although he only had like 19 points last night, so they did a pretty decent job of sort of slowing him. But when it's a killer instinct back at home in Miami, I don't know if I plan to see much more than 7, maybe 8 dudes, depending on if the Knicks start out okay. If they don't find themselves in a big hole early like they did last night, then we shall see. But by the way, it's a miracle the Knicks scored over 100 points in a game where they scored 5 points in the first quarter. 5 points is still low, but what was it?
It was 14. It was 14 in the first quarter.
14, nearly 3 times what I said. 14 points in the first quarter against that Miami Heat team, and still managed to get over 100 and win.
Usually that's how they beat you, right? That's how they beat you is they get up a little bit early and then they play the strangle game the rest of the way, or they keep it close. If you can jump out to those big leads, I mean, don't ask the Bucks, who did have big leads and blew it. But typically, if you can get out in front of the Heat and make them play catch up in a big way, they just don't have the firepower to be able to do it. But that's changed a little bit in the playoffs here as different guys have gotten hot.
Yeah, and the fortunate thing for New York was that they used so much energy to get back in the second quarter and then had halftime right after. And I do sort of worry a little bit about the legs just because they do play tomorrow night, so it's not like that big 3 or 4 days.
And it's in Miami. You got to take the trip down there. You don't get the home crowd. Yeah,
these dudes. It's a fairly young team. It's a fairly young team that I'm not too worried about. I'd be more worried about. If I can look see how many Jimmy Butler played. He played 43 minutes in that game. He played the most for Miami, so I mean everybody will be okay. Let's move on to eventually crowning the Los Angeles Lakers your new NBA champions, but not after last night.
Don't say that.
Not after last night.
No one except Lakers fans wants that. No one.
Let me ask you this: Would a Knicks Lakers be the best possible case for everyone in the world except for you?
Definitely except for me. No, I don't. Like I've said all season.
I'm going to pretend you're Adam Silver.
Yeah.
Your options right now are Knicks, Lakers, or Celtics, Lakers. Which do you think does better?
Probably Knicks, Lakers, because you've played the Celtics, Lakers game a few times now in the modern era. We've gotten that redo. And the Knicks, it's been so long since they've been in a position to contend like this. Again, they got a long ways to go, but were they able to get that far, I would think the league would bask in being able to re-energize even further the New York market fan base and some of the legacy that's there, and to be able to show stuff from the 70s and the Patrick Ewing highlights and all that again. They would. Yeah,
they'll show stuff from, the World Trade Center still being around. The ABC will do that again. They'll gladly say, hey, listen, this is what happened. By the way, did you catch that controversy last weekend?
I didn't. No.
There was an in-between shot as they were sort of coming back from break, and they showed sort of the Statue of Liberty with the World Trade Center tower still up. And ABC was like, we're really sorry about that. And we're like, yeah, it's It's 22 years ago.
Yeah, what kind of stock footage is that? Give me a break.
Right, like there's got to be enough New York footage around.
One would think, or just have AI generate you some fake footage these days. Like, good grief.
Yeah, like nothing wrong with the Statue of Liberty, but maybe since 2009, maybe. Like,
welcome to San Fran,
just,
Tokyo. Here we are.
Yeah, look at you, San Fran, Tokyo. I get what you're throwing down there. A little cloudy with a chance of meatballs, right? Yeah.
No, Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6. That's what it is. San Fran,
so
Tokyo.
Which one's the cloudy with the big chance of meatballs? It's
You're right that it is a mashup, but I don't recall what the name is. I should know because my kids are of the age that they were mainlining that movie, both of them, at the time they came out. I honestly don't remember. I just remember Big Hero 6 because it was a cool world design of mashing up the two cities.
Okay, well,
we are on a tangent. Let's I don't know. You want to talk Lakers Warriors next year?
I mean, not really. I kind of want to figure out what the city name is. Because it's very San
and we'll be right back.
Oh man, this is gonna bug me. Well, I'll let you talk about the Lakers while I'll figure out the city. So the Lakers do not get the win in Golden State for the closeout of the series. LeBron and AD played the majority of the game until AD decided, hey, I'm finding ways to get injured all the time. He had to be wheelchaired out, which was a little bit of a little disconcerting.
Maybe concussion-like symptoms.
Yeah. So they do say that the last thing I saw was that he's okay. He's probably not quite a concussion, but he did get banged up. But Golden State, I mean, they won that game pretty much for the duration of it. So kudos to them for keeping that championship grit and fight going. They both go back to LA. Joe, for me, it's been the same story when we talk about the beginning of the series. The Los Angeles looks like they're the better team right now. They're playing better right now overall. It is a little AD health contingent, as a lot of this stuff is.
Yeah, it always is.
And if we get, maybe not one or two games in between good AD games, which he tends to do as well, sometimes in the playoffs too, a lot of times in the playoffs. But I still like LA's chances where they are right now, despite your complete disgust for the franchise. Does Golden State have a shot to be able to pull out these next two and to continue on to the conference finals?
They do, and I mean, you're not going to like hearing this, but if I had to put money on one of the teams that was down 3-1 being able to come back, it would be the Warriors. But I don't feel great about it because, as you said, the Lakers, they play the right way. And I've said this before, so I don't want to harp too much on it. But in all honesty, if you were going to build a team around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you were going to build a supporting cast around them, you would build this team. Young legs, shooting, a couple of really savvy, no conscience guys like D'Angelo Russell, some glue guys like Austin Reeves, high motor like Jared Vanderbilt. Rui Hachimura does a little bit of everything. Dennis Schroeder is in the perfect role. I mean, we all kind of rolled our eyes and laughed at him when he passed up that big contract that he should have taken. But Dennis Schroeder as a starter would have been the next Reggie Jackson, which is a massive disappointment as an overpaid player who is a bottom tier NBA starting point guard. But as a high minute sixth man that can run dual point guard with either LeBron James or D'Angelo Russell and really hone in on the defensive chops that Schroeder has always had, perfect. He is in the perfect role for what they need to bring that energy. And so, yeah, the Lakers, they do feel like, I don't know if it's the better team. They just feel like the team that's got it all figured out a little bit more. But the Warriors are not that far behind, and they've got enough depth that they've been able to plug in somebody like Gary Payton II for 27 minutes and get something out of him the same way that when they plugged in Jordan Poole in the starting lineup when Draymond Green went out against Sacramento, they got big production. It's amazing that they can win big, by as much as they did and be in control for as long as they did in Game 5 while getting 10 points out of Klay Thompson and him having such a lousy game. But Gary Payton was above his norm. Draymond Green at 20 points. When's the last time that happened? It was 20 and 10 for Draymond. Andrew Wiggins had a magnificent game on both ends, just camping in the lane, getting those little turnaround fadeaways, the little hook shots, getting some putback yams on people. It was all very classic Andrew Wiggins stuff instead of him floating around the wing, where he's a decent player. But when he is in the paint and just living there, he's so tough. And he adds that other dimension to the Warriors that they don't have, because they don't have a low post, throw it into this guy and let him get something type of player. They just don't. And Wiggins was so good defensively on LeBron. LeBron got his, but Wiggins made him work. And LeBron never got comfortable for multiple possessions in a row. He'd get a couple of really good looks, and then that'd be it. So, yeah, the Warriors they've got something good here, but they've been such an inconsistent team all season. I don't think they advance even beyond the next game without a big one from Klay Thompson. But I love the fact that they are all going downhill. It was very clear what the message was. Attack the freaking basket. And Draymond Green was doing it. Wiggins was doing it. And it's not just sending one guy to attack. It's sending multiple guys now at the hoop. But they stretch Anthony Davis away from the basket so he's not guarding the rim, and then attack from the other angles and make sure you've got a follow-up. And they're kind of playing the Lakers at their own game a little bit in playing in the paint, which is tough to do because the Lakers are such good shot blockers, but the Warriors have kind of played Vanderbilt off the floor a little bit now. And, hopefully AD comes back and is healthy, but there's always that risk that he then has a weird game in, game 6 because he's just not right.
By the way, the city name in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2 I was mentioning is San Fran Jose. So, we're close.
We're close.
We're a little close. You were right as far as Big Hero 6. Solid film, Cloudy with Meatballs, Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2. Solid films. Recommend those if you haven't seen them. If you haven't, I don't even know. You're probably watching the wrong podcast. This is what this podcast is all about. It's animated
movies. Yeah. That's what we do here.
I agree with you as far as Golden State's concerned. That is what got them so much success and back into the series against Sacramento. It's sort of a similar mindset, which is attack in the basket. And once they sort of saw that, I don't know why Golden State needs to see death in the eyes of their own mirrors to be able to do this. But it's such an effective strategy for them. It works time and time and time again. And I know it leaves you susceptible on the other end a little bit, but you're out of times, right? To just sort of be screwing around. Just play loose, play with what you can at this point. And if everybody's on the same page doing that, I think that's probably their best shot against LA. LeBron has been semi-limited in the last couple of games as far as how effective he's been. But
he was limping around on that foot a little bit in the fourth quarter, too. The same one that he hurt earlier in the season and missed 25 games.
That was my next thing. It's I think there may be something a little bit up with that for LeBron, but it's okay. For now, the big thing is figuring out whether or not Anthony Davis is going to be healthy, because a healthy Anthony Davis, no matter what kind of game you get, affects at least one side of the ball usually effectively really well, especially if you got a team like Golden State sending all of their missiles toward the rocket or toward the backboard constantly, which is, I think, where LA sort of finds themselves in a little bit of a more precarious spot than they probably want to be. If you got Anthony Davis, and there are people calling me in that game saying, "Hey, should LA rest their starters for this game?" And it's no, you have a chance to knock out the champ.
That's dumb.
Go do it. Okay,
that's dumb.
I don't care if you're on the road and you have a 2-game.
Don't you ever rest anyone in a playoff series ever? That's one of the stupidest fan suggestions I've ever heard.
But we know injuries have affected these playoffs to a degree. We've seen a little bit with Jimmy Butler, with Giannis, with just about everybody. LeBron could be a little bit. Anthony Davis, we've seen it be a thing with him. So a healthy Anthony Davis helps. I think Anthony Davis is going to be fine. My only issue is that it's so short term. The game 6. I don't know if just because of the protocol, and again, I haven't seen anything on it since we started recording.
Yeah, maybe something.
Yeah, maybe something. Okay, yeah, maybe it's West Coast time, so who knows when and if they'll say anything sort of soon. They don't really have to right now. if Anthony Davis is in the game, I suspect he's healthy enough to be able to play in the game. I don't think they're sitting him unless they have to because of a concussion protocol. That still gives me a lot of hope and faith in LA because I don't think Golden State. I don't know. I've said this going into the postseason. I was wrong about them going into the postseason. I was wrong about them against Sacramento. But this Lakers team overall has a lot more like just general experience. Let me read you this thing that I found I thought was interesting. So remember, this Lakers team won the championship in the bubble, 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here was their roster that was in that bubble championship team. Kendavius Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, Troy Daniels, Anthony Davis, Jared Dudley, Danny Green, Jalen Horton-Tucker, Dwight Howard, LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma, JaVale McKee, Markieff Morris, Zach Norville, Rajon Rondo, J.R. Smith, Dion Waiters. Do you know who's still on that team?
LeBron
and Anthony Davis, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only ones left on this.
Well, and they've cycled. I mean, they've cycled that supporting cast completely, like 3 or 4 times. Besides Rondo and Dwight Howard both showing up more than once in the refreshes, it's been absolutely, recycled a couple.
This is a complete coup that this Lakers team is not only this far, but was able to get this much better. And I know there's a trade in particular you want to investigate it immediately.
Yep.
But I gotta say, man, I don't want to believe in the Lakers being the team to knock out Golden State and sort of put them out of their misery, but I think they're going to be.
They're capable. They're more than capable.
I hesitate to say this because Golden State's a little Miami-ish, although Miami is that same bubble team that, people are like the bubble was not real kind of thing. But Miami, Lakers are still playing. Both of them had 3-1 leads going into last night. Miami was a game from playing in the finals last year. So I hesitate to just say that Golden State is done because I didn't think it'd be the Lakers to be the team that did it. But I think it's going to be the Lakers that do it, man. I think it is. I think the Lakers do it in LA.
I want to tip my cap to the NBA that we're having this conversation about the Lakers and the Heat. As much as I hate the big market teams just showing back up no matter what, right back where they always are, this is a testament to the play-in system. Because normally, teams that were on the fringe, like the Lakers or the Heat, hovering around the 8th seed, the 10th seed, which is where the Lakers were for a lot of this season.
Yeah.
Miami got down that low for a little bit, although they were up higher for a little bit too. Normally, teams would have packed it in, right? The last 10 games, they would have packed it up. They even at the trade deadline, they might have waved the white flag a little bit and rebuilt for next year or tried to position for a better draft pick. And instead, those teams, those franchises, and there was a lot on the line, like they're older teams. You got LeBron, you're not going to pack it in, that sort of thing. But they continued to just churn through players and through ideas, the Lakers especially, but the Heat continued to grind. And look at where they are. They are both legit contenders right now.
So stop winning games in the regular season. I get it, Joe. That's what I'm saying. Stop playing in the regular season. That's a great point. But no, I see what you're saying. Like, at the end of the year, if you think you're out of it just because of where you are in the standings, the play-in has said that's not the case.
Right. Because you can get hot at the right time.
This Lakers roster isn't the most complete roster in the NBA. They're good. They're good, and they're worthy of being in the playoffs and being where they are now. This Heat roster is not the best roster in the NBA.
This Heat roster might be the least talented roster in the playoffs, and that was true in the first round too.
Yeah. Now, granted, not everyone has a Jimmy Butler, but a lot of people have a lot of Tyler Hero-esque type players that could be playing at the end of the season into battle. So, yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. So, kudos to the Lakers for getting their NBA championship run right. And we won't be able to say it officially when it happens, but it was nice knowing you, Warriors. Very cool seeing relevant basketball
I
over
don't
there
want it
for a
to
little
end
while.
this way, Golden State. Please don't go down like this. I don't want it to end this way.
I wanted it to be Sacramento so bad. I wanted it to be Sacramento because I like Sacramento. The Lakers, no chance I'm rooting for the Lakers for anything.
Right.
Nice
I can
after this.
respect the Lakers. I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to like the Lakers, but I can respect this team for sure.
And I don't care if they do bring ratings for the NBA. That doesn't matter to me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm watching that. I'm watching the playoffs and the finals anyway.
Correct.
Like, if it's Sacramento, Milwaukee, I'm watching the finals. Like, it does not matter to me. But, conspiracy.
We're in the minority, though. We are in the minority.
Yeah, well,
it's a lot of fair weather fans.
Good. Well, some of these people are in the minority by not liking basketball as much as we do. Bro.
Some of these people are idiots by suggesting you would rest your starters in a playoff.
What do you mean,
game.
Joel?
Let's go on to the other series because we're going to get.
Come on, let's put in the backup.
We're short on time here. We're short.
Okay, I guess we might want. Okay, let's look at a stupid Philadelphia-Boston series.
Wow.
And not stupid if you're me, because I hate Boston. So good job for them Philadelphia 76ers. They play tonight, right? I think they played. Is that right? They played tonight? Okay, they played tonight. A chance for Philadelphia to punch out the Celtics, the defending Eastern Conference champs. More like chumps, you know what I'm saying? I saw a video where there seemed to be some awkward body language in the hotel between Brad Stevens and their head coach. I forget his name.
Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Mazzulla. Man, what a fun name that is. And who knows what that was all about. But Boston not in the best position right now going into the Game 6, going back out to Philadelphia. Joel, I've been overall pretty impressed with Philadelphia this series. They have not had a great Joel Embiid the entire series, but they've had him in bursts. Same thing with James Harden. They've not had a great James Harden every single game, but they've had a couple of really darn good James Harden performances, and they find themselves able to win in just about any way they've needed to so far against Boston. And if you're Boston, I think that's troubling.
When those two have been good, they've been great. They have been great when they've been on. And yeah, they've had some clunkers along the way. Embiid has dealt with injury issues, which just feels like a given. Almost like losing Chris Paul in a playoff series after 2.5 games feels like a given. But Embiid has come back and he's battled. He really has. And Harden, I've appreciated the maturity with which Harden is playing. Yeah, he had a couple lousy games, and he had one where he kind of he went back into that overly passive James Harden, which you never want to see. But the majority of the time, that guy has taken exactly what the defense has given him. He's been making the right read. He's been pushing the tempo when it needs. And how good has Tyrese Maxey been?
Oh, my God.
Maxey has been everything they needed as the third wheel in a way that Tobias Harris probably was always a little overexposed. Harris is a guy that a lot of people have always been high on, and I've always been like, man, Tobias Harris is like a fourth or fifth wheel, and he just keeps getting recast as the second or third guy on teams, and it's just too much. But with Maxey able to step up and be that spark plug who, again, is leaking out, they're able to throw passes to him, who pushes the tempo as a one-man fast break, who is a blow-by waiting to happen when he takes you off the dribble. He gives them that element that they don't have from any other player, though they used to get a little bit of that from Shake Milton, and Maxey has been so good. Milton is not even in the rotation anymore. But, DeAnthony Melton has been a great two-way player. George Nang, able to knock down shots. Like, they have that depth that we thought they finally got at the beginning of this season, and it took a long time for it to kind of coalesce. Even a guy like Daniel House, who has so much experience playing with James Harden and PJ Tucker from their Rockets days, but was really out of the rotation through the second half of the season, all of a sudden stepping up big minutes in a playoff series here. It's what happens during the postseason. You see it going on with Phoenix, where suddenly somebody like Terrence Ross or TJ Warren stepping up and giving you big minutes for a couple of games. That's been House here. It's been great for Boston. I just don't understand it. Boston is too talented. And you asked a question at the beginning of this series that really has stuck with me. You were like, are you worried about Joe Mazzulla getting out coached by Doc Rivers? And I said, Doc Rivers has had so many issues coaching that, yeah, we know he's really good sometimes, but at worst, Missoula is going to be a wash against them. I think I might have been wrong there. I think Missoula is getting out coached here by Doc Rivers, and I can't exactly put my finger on what it is or how it is, and maybe I need to just break down film a little bit more, but Al Horford can't go 0 of 7 and 0 points in 25 minutes in a game like, game 5. And where is the massive Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown games? It feels like we've been getting those, but then not enough from everybody else. Malcolm Brogdon only 7 points. Derek White only 7 points. Marcus Smart has been good, but not great. But it doesn't feel like the Celtics are doing anything particularly wrong, does it? Like, I watch those games.
No,
I don't see major mistakes.
I think top end Philadelphia is just the Philadelphia I thought they were a couple of years ago. I thought this top end Philadelphia team is just a deep, very solid, could be really, really elite team at times, right? And we've seen some of that play, as you alluded to. Tyrese Maxey, in their 3 wins in this series, has 70 points. That's 70 points in the 3 games. That's pretty darn good, if you're asking me. That's only if you're asking me. If you ask other people, you may say only 75 and above counts for a 3-game stretch. But Tyrese Maxey is your number 1. And James Harden is playing really, really well overall. Now, yes, he's up and down points-wise, but he's hitting game winners for you. Joel Embiid's finding him out like the corner of his eye somewhere when it doesn't look like there's a pass could be made anywhere near him.
He's controlling the game like a point guard, even though he's not a point guard. That is what he plays a lot of times too. You know?
And I agree with sort of the overly passive thing, but James Harden sort of has like, if I have a big scoring game, I feel like everyone's going to say, I'm trying to score all the points. So the next game, I'm going to go out and make sure I find people. But again, he averaged over 10 assists a game again this year. Like
you can survive one Harden game like that per series. You can, and so far it's just been one. You can't have multiple ones. So if that's all we got, the Sixers will be fine,
Yeah, and James Harden is a 10 assist game per game guy this year. Like it's his makeup. Like now great game. It was game 2 that what you're talking about, where he just.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it would just like, dude, take the shot. Come on. Take the shot, man. You're just coming off a nearly 50-point game. It's okay. You have a hot hand. Play it. But I think the better team and the deeper knowledge coaching is kind of sort of worked out for Doc Rivers. I think this is the chance for Philadelphia to get to the NBA Finals. I think they're going to be able to punch out Boston. I think Boston is a little more erratic in sort of how they play. I think they're a little more all over the place.
I think they let go of the rope after the first 2 games. They were in such control that they let game 3 slip, and they haven't been able to find it again.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate because Philadelphia has held on this entire time. Philadelphia, I think, lost the next 2. Philadelphia 1-1, lost 2-3, won 3-4, and right now, that's where all the momentum's to Philly's corner right now, because Philly gets to go back home for game 6, and Philly can knock them out in game 6. And I think that could go back to 7 and go back to Boston, but Philly sure as hell doesn't want it to. And I think Philadelphia is just a deeper, better coached team. Joe Mazzulla, God bless him for being able to get the job right, for being at the right place at the right time. But this roster,
doing a good job with it. I mean,
this roster was elite last year after January 1. They were in the NBA Finals for a reason. They're a good roster. They figured out a couple of smoothing the edges kind of moments to make it better. But there was not a whole lot Joe Mazzulla had to do. And there were a lot of naysayers about Joe Mazzulla's coaching throughout the season situationally. He held on to timeouts way too long. He let teams go on runs too often against him before calling timeout, or sometimes never calling timeouts at all. It seemed like there were at least a dozen opportunities throughout the year that people were like, well, what is that? That doesn't make sense. That's not how you do it. That doesn't make any sense at all. I was trying to think of the who was
I mean, he never accidentally spilled his drink on the floor to
okay, fair.
Create a timeout. So it didn't get that bad, but there were plenty of questionable moments for sure.
Yeah, again, Doc Rivers has been doing it forever at this point compared to Joe Mazzulla's 35 minutes. Like, you got to expect one guy's better at this sort of overall. One guy's been in the playoffs like every year, like it feels like since he's been coaching, and the other guy hasn't. So I sort of see why it's a big coaching mismatch right now. Doc Rivers, just because he's had some bad stretches, being up 3-1 in series and stuff, he's had some bad moments, doesn't mean he's an idiot. Doesn't mean he's an idiot. Doesn't mean with a similar roster, maybe even deeper, which I think it is, that he's not the better coach at that point. Speaking of that better coaches, Mike Malone, my man, that dude in the Phoenix Suns. Well, he's with the Denver Nuggets. The Phoenix Suns are their opponent. You see what I'm saying? You guys are smart. You know who the teams are at this point. If you're not, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to basketball. That series has gone. Well, let me ask you, Joel. Let me just flat out ask you. I usually sort of set it up in a really cutesy way. What do you think about how this series has turned out? We've seen a lot from Denver. We've seen a lot from Phoenix. And by the way, kudos to you for saying the game after Joel Embiid gets named the MVP, the next game that he plays does a Nikola Jokic, throws around 50 plus points in that game. Yeah, he has one of those. Oh yeah, screw you guys.
They still lost, but yeah, he had a great game.
That game was amazing. That game was amazing. Devin Booker was amazing. Kevin Durant was amazing.
So many great offensive players in this series.
It was phenomenal to be able to watch that game. Devin Booker having the playoffs of his life, of anyone's life, to be honest with you. He's been spectacular. But
Jamal Murray looking like he's fully healthy and all the way back.
This has been the series for me, even though I'm the Knicks dude. This has been the most fun series it's turned out to watch. Like, I like the bruising, but I'm exhausted after watching the Knicks be able to play. This has clearly been the most fun series.
This is a shot-making series is what it is.
And dudes are doing it. Dudes are absolutely killing it and crushing it. So what do you think about how this series has gone and how Denver finds himself with a chance to get to the finals?
Denver's best shot here is that they were the #1 seed and they have home court advantage, because that's been everything in this series. The home team has won every single game. They've all felt like they have been, even in blowout games, they feel like it's so close. Even if the game isn't close, you walk out of it going, okay, we got the win, whatever team we are, but that means nothing going into the next one. It means nothing because the opponent is so good. And yeah, the Suns doing it without Chris Paul again. Campaign has really stepped up. Other guys, like I mentioned, TJ Warren, this is another guy with right role, right time. TJ Warren is a guy who's been in and out of the rotation all year for the Suns. He was once supposed to be a starter in this league in Phoenix and then in Indiana, but injuries have robbed him of like the last 5 years. It feels like it probably is that long. And he can get buckets. He absolutely can get buckets. So when Coach Monty Williams has to dust him off to bring in some offense, didn't do it so much in Game 5, but Game 4 was really, really helpful. And Terrence Ross, another bucket getter who's been on some bad Orlando teams, but was on some okay Toronto Raptors teams before that. Dude knows how to score and was out of the rotation, but when called upon, Jacques Landale coming in for the Suns, playing the backup center minutes behind Ayton, has been really productive, and they've needed those bodies against Jokic. But Jokic has just been that good, and Michael Porter Jr. is just a flamethrower right now from downtown. That big frame, the ability to elevate over people, Murray's been able to do it inside and outside. I could just sit here and name names about everybody who's playing well, but it honestly literally feels like everyone is playing well for both teams within their roles. There's nobody that I'm looking at, whether it's a Christian Brown, Jeff Green, Bruce Brown on the Denver side, haven't named Torrey Craig or Josh Okogie, like DeAndre Ayton, even. I know a lot of people have been on him like, oh, he's got to get more points. He's guarding freaking Nikola Jokic. Like,
yeah, exactly.
DeAndre Ayton is a good player. He's a former #1 pick. He is a starting caliber center in this league with some fringe all-star potential. He is guarding a Hall of Famer at the peak of his powers. I think Ayton's doing just about as well as he can do, honestly. Yeah. I got
Kevin
no
Durant
complaints.
said after the game, he was like, every time I look at him, I'm amazed. I'm amazed because he has all these different ways to type of score. And every time I look at him, there are times I look at him and he's like, puts up what looks like a terrible shot. He's like, well, that's going to miss. And he goes straight in. And you're like, what are you supposed to do? Like, it's special. Whatever he's
And that's
doing.
high praise coming from one of the best, most multifaceted scorers of all time, right? Not just of our era, of all time. That's high praise coming from Kevin Durant because he's got the same thing to his game too, right?
Yeah, he does. There's a lot of people like, that's not going in. Oh, hey, okay. So wasn't expecting that. Let's inbound it. I'm with you. I think
I'm picking Denver in 7. That's all I can do. And I want 7 games of this. It has been a fun series and I don't want it to end.
I think Phoenix has figured out sort of how this roster is going to work, right? And I think they're playing really, really well overall, right? Denver's got something figured out, man. And we were both skeptical coming into the postseason because, well, they've given us reason to be skeptical in the postseason. But they're not.
They never looked dominant. They never dominated a stretch during the NBA regular season.
And even in this series, they pulled away a Game 5, 118 to 102, but it was a 5-point win in Game 4. Game 3, Phoenix OS versus Phoenix, I should say. The Suns won Game 3. Game 2 went to the Nuggets. That was a 10-point slug fight. And then a 125-107 Game 1. This is arguably the best they've looked for a series in the first 2. And it's because of the caliber of competition that they're going against, especially. This isn't...
They have to play that way to beat the Suns. You're right.
Yeah, and they're doing it. And this is not a Denver team that I thought would be able to play at that level for this many games in a row. And they have. And I've been really, really kind of impressed with Mike Malone's group.
I have too, and this is looking forward, assuming a Nuggets win, which is stupid because don't assume the Suns are that good. But I am assuming it because of the home court advantage and because Chris Paul hurt yet again. It always happens. It happens over and over and over with Paul. It's the story of his career, especially in the semifinals. He goes down after game 2.5, and then maybe comes back on the tail end of a series, but is not himself. And here we are again. It's like Groundhog Day. But assuming a Denver Nuggets win, they're going to have a really, I think, franchise and Nikola Jokic defining challenge in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Because if you face the Lakers or the Warriors, both of those teams have previously ripped the hearts out of the Nuggets in some really tough matchups where the Nuggets were a great team on a roll and they ran into the Warriors or the Lakers. And you got to wonder whether the Nuggets will have the mental toughness to go, now is our time. Screw you guys. We don't care what you did in the past. It is our time. You have to catch up to us. Or if they're going to have that little bit of uncertainty that goes, oh, crap, LeBron again. Oh, I remember what he did last time. I hope we can beat him. I hope this is our year. It can't be hope. It's got to be punch LeBron, punch AD, punch the Lakers or the Warriors in the mouth, execute the crap out of it because this Nuggets team is loaded. This is their window. This is their time. But yeah, though either of those opponents has a really big psychological hook that Denver's going to have to get over the hump in a way that like the Pistons did on the Celtics or the Bulls did on the Pistons. I do honestly think, even though the number of matchups they had against those teams is not the same for the Nuggets, I think it is that level of like mental hurdle that they're going to have to overcome. And if they don't do it this year, that feels like something that's going to stick with them the rest of the way. And they're an also ran.
It's never happened at this point because you'd have a super old Golden State team that's been pushed through the wire through the first 2 series, right? So you have as much tape as humanly possible on them, and you're playing at a decent level. Or it's the Lakers, who you're a better matchup for. I think you should be the favorite, and you'll have 4 of the 7 games at home if you get to 7. So you've been the better team, and you played well against the Lakers this season. I'll say this: this Phoenix team is the one I think is best suited to come back down from 3-2 to be able to win of the 4, besides the Knicks. Let me ask you this, Joel, and then we'll start to wind this bad boy down.
Yeah, we're short on time. I'm tight.
Do you think that any of these teams that are up 3-2 drop?
As I said before, I think the only one at this point that is in danger are the Lakers because, and this is, it's a pick on the legacy of the Warriors, but it's also a pick on the firepower that they do have. I'll take the Warriors out of it. I think Boston's got a little bit of a chance. New York, I think, stretches this to 7. I do like Denver over Phoenix without Chris Paul. I do like Denver over Phoenix in that scenario.
Congratulations to the NBA, by the way. All 4 of their semifinal series going at least 6 games. Not the worst case to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best place to be. All right, Joel, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week when we talk more hoopage, in which the New York Knicks would have moved on. And so will maybe another team or two. Everybody's going to be advanced by the time we speak again. So, Joel, let's enjoy some hoopage. And let's say goodbye on the Clyde the Glide Drexler episode.
Absolutely. Find us on YouTube for the video version. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell over there. If you want the audio version, Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. This is Basketball by Association, and we'll do it again next week.